Hi everyone, it is nice to meet you all again on my part 3 lecture of human health and diseases. So as you all know, this is a part of the 12th CBSE syllabus, a very interesting lesson to talk about. And today in this part 3 we are going to cover the bacterial and the viral diseases. So when we talk about the aspects of NEAT, from a NEAT aspect, you can expect match the following. As I already said, you'll have the causative agent on one side, the disease on the other side. You need to match the right one. You can have questions from diagnostic measures, especially let's take an example. If anybody has typhoid, how will you diagnose that patient? What test will you go exclusively for it? So you can have questions like that. So let's not wait. Let's get started with the chapter. So today, before going into the first part of information, I would like to give you an introduction before we go into it. So when I say bacteria and virus, so what are they basically? They are microorganisms. Why is the name microorganisms for them? Because they cannot be seen by our naked eyes, right? They cannot be seen through our naked eyes. We need an equipment to view it. So we use microscope, and under microscope you have various microscope, like light microscope, then you have the dark field microscope, right? So the microscope is being used to view these microorganisms. So these microorganisms, when it comes to their population, they are the highest of the human population. Anything, not just human, they are the highest when compared to the population. They are everywhere. Okay, just because we cannot see it through our naked eyes, it doesn't mean they don't survive. They survive everywhere. So there is a difference between bacteria and virus. Have you ever thought, why is a bacteria having it has disadvantage and advantage, but when it comes to a virus, it has only disadvantages? Have you ever thought about that? See, a bacteria can survive without a host cell. Okay, a bacteria can survive without a host cell. Very important. It does not require a host. It's not a compulsory process. If it is inside a host, of course it uses a host mechanism, it survives, all that is there. But imagine if it is not inside a host cell, it can survive on a table, it can survive on a chair, it can still live. But the same thing cannot be seen for a virus. A virus cannot survive on anything which does not have life. It exclusively requires a host, and that is the main difference between bacteria and virus. That is why virus has only disadvantages. It can only survive utilizing the host mechanism. It can only survive by deteriorating the mechanism of the host. Okay, so this is something that I would like to add on here. Okay, now let's move to the first part here. Okay, so as I already mentioned, we are going to see the bacterial and viral diseases. First, we will see the disease-causing agents. It's not just bacteria and virus exclusively causing diseases. There are a lot of other microorganisms which we have just missed out. We'll see the list first. So what all comes here? Bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoans, helminths, rickettsia, chlamydia, and mycoplasma. So bacteria, virus, I've already given you an introduction of what they are. Of course, all that are mentioned here are all microorganisms to be in common. But let's see a few points about fungi. Okay, so what is fungi? It is a microorganism, but you can see the growth through your naked eyes. You must have seen the breads, something that has moisture. You leave something aside which has moisture in it, and you leave it undisturbed. After some days you come and see it, you will see growth on it, the fungal growth on it. The colors might vary. You'll find green color, you'll find dark gray, black color, gray color. So all these are nothing but the fungal growth, but to see the internal structure you use a microscope. That is why it is still considered as a microorganism. So fungus is actually singular form, while fungi is a plural form, is any member of the eukaryotic organisms that includes microorganisms such as yeast and molds, as well as some familiar mushrooms which are edible part of the fungi. These organisms are classified as a kingdom which is separate from the eukaryotic kingdom of plants and animals. They stand unique. Next, coming on to protozoans. So any idea what these protozoans are? do you have any idea about it? So protozoans, if you see, is an informal term of single-celled eukaryotes. They are single-celled eukaryotes. Okay, single-celled eukaryotes. Either they might be free-living or they're mostly parasitic. Okay, which feed on organic matter such as other microorganisms or organic tissues or debris. Debris is a waste. Okay, so microorganisms, as I said, these are also microscopic. They are unicellular eukaryotic organisms. They are relatively complex when it comes to the internal structure, and they are said to carry out complex metabolic activities. So mostly they are in the form of cyst formation or eggs, okay, in the worm formation. Next, coming on to Rickettsia. Rickettsia is a bacteria. Okay, Rickettsia is a, okay, I forgot about helminths. Helminths also, they are a part of protozoans. They are worm infestations that are seen especially in elderly and young kids. Okay, because they have the habit, especially when you take kids, they don't accustom to certain habits. They don't wash and eat, or they might drink water, they might get food from outside and have. So when it is not properly sanitized, or if the preparation is not in a pure sanitized method, the eggs or the cyst, okay, of these protozoans, when they are liberated out in the environment, and when they get mixed with the it might be through the fecal sample, or it might be in the water, contaminated water, so it directly gets infested, it's ingested in the kid, and thereby the organism starts to grow inside the host. Okay, so helminths once again come under worms. Next, coming on to Rickettsia, they are a diverse collection of obligately intracellular gram-negative bacteria. So one thing that I'd like to mention here, bacteria can be classified into gram-positive and gram-negative. Okay, so you can ask me, what is this gram-positive, gram-negative? They are the staining methods that they follow under lab conditions, or you can say in vitro conditions, to view them under microscope. Okay, so for example, if a bacteria is a gram-positive bacteria, it would take the purple stain even when it is subjected to decolorization, or when you use ethanol. Ethanol is the agent that is used for decolorization there. Even after using that, the organism cell wall will remain purple. It doesn't get discolorized there. Gram-negative, if you see, once this ethanol has been added to the bacteria, their cell wall will give out, will liberate that purple color, and they will retain the pink color, which is used in the later part of the staining process. So here there are two types of bacteria. Why I said this here is Rickettsia belongs to gram-negative bacteria. Okay, they are obligately intracellular gram-negative bacteria. They are found in ticks, lice, fleas, mites, chiggers, and other mammals. Okay, so next, coming to chlamydia. Any idea what they are? Have you heard about it? Have you heard about it? Okay, so chlamydia, if you see, it is a small bacterium. Okay, it is a bacterial infections that are passed on through an intimate contact. So they are mostly associated with sexually transmitted diseases. Okay, and next is mycoplasma. I think this you must have heard about it. Mycoplasma. So mycoplasma is again a bacteria. Okay, it's a genus of bacteria that lack cell wall around their cell membranes. This characteristic makes them naturally resistant to antibiotics that the target cell. Why is it told here like that? See, most of the antibiotics are targeted for cell walls of the bacteria. So this mycoplasma doesn't have a cell wall. Thereby, when you incorporate any antibiotics for the person who is attacked or who is infected with mycoplasma, the antibiotics might not work because they don't have cell wall. So they cannot work on the targeted organisms since they lack cell wall. Okay, so a wide range of organisms belonging to bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoans, helminths, etc. could cause diseases in man, and they are simply termed as pathogens. The one which is not beneficial to our body, they are all termed as pathogens. Okay, fine. Next, coming to the bacterial diseases, we are going to go a little deep into it and we are going to study the diseases which come under bacterial diseases. Okay, so the first disease that we are going to see under bacterial disease is typhoid. Okay, so typhoid in humans, it is caused by the pathogenic bacterium Salmonella typhi. So this is the name of the genus and this is the name of the species. Okay, and it's not just Salmonella typhi that causes typhoid. You also have another genus. I mean, it's the same genus but this different species, Salmonella paratyphi. Okay, Salmonella paratyphi. This is also supposed to cause typhoid in humans. So how is it transmitted? How the mode of entry? It is transmitted by ingestion of contaminated food or water with feces of an infected person. That's what, if the water is contaminated, okay, when the water has fecal samples, when you don't boil the water properly and you intake the water, those fecal samples which is already there in the water would get ingested in your body and you end up in typhoid. Symptoms: so you experience high fever, headache, extreme weakness, constipation or diarrhea. Sometimes you even have reddish spots or rose spots on the chest might appear. It's not found in all the cases but a few. Next, we are coming to the diagnosis part. So how will you identify whether the person has typhoid or not? So the exclusive test for typhoid is Vidal test. Okay, so you can ask me what's the full form of this. This is widely investigated distributed analytical test that is carried out exclusively for the typhoid. So the other name for typhoid is enteric fever. It is called as enteric fever. Okay, so Vidal test, if you see, it's an agglutination test that detects agglutinating antibodies against the O and the H antigens of the Salmonella typhi. So this test is used to diagnose the disease and antibiotics are given for treating the disease. So how can you prevent this disease? Okay, so prevention is controlled by avoiding having contaminated food or water. Okay, next. So next we are going to discuss tuberculosis, which is commonly called as TB, and the causative agent of tuberculosis is Mycobacterium tuberculosis or tuberculae. It is a causative agent of tuberculosis. TB infection starts from the patient with pulmonary TB coughing. Okay, so they are infected. I mean, this disease is contagious. It seems to spread from one person to another, which results in release of infectious bacilli into the aerosol, as I already mentioned. So this is through inhalation, or these infectious particles get transmitted to other individuals, and the diagnostic measures here. So these infectious particles get transmitted to other individuals. So this is a contagious disease, as I already said. Now moving on to the diagnosis part. So tuberculosis can be diagnosed with the help of Mantoux test. Okay, it is called as Mantoux test. Several drugs such as, so you have drugs like isoniazid, then you have rifampicin. All these drugs can be used, or they are also available for the treatment of tuberculosis. Okay, so mostly the person who is having tuberculosis, they're identified with the help of certain characteristics. They say that the sputum comes out in different colors. Okay, the sputum is said to be found in brown, or it might be green, depending upon the disease, depending upon how hard or how the person is experiencing the disease. So these are some of the symptoms that you can see physically. Okay, and these are some of the drugs that are available for the treatment of tuberculosis. Now coming to the prevention part, it can be prevented by vaccination with attenuated organisms in the vaccine. So you have BCG, right? Bacillus of Calmette and Guerin. So this is the full form of BCG. So now you can ask me, what is the meaning of attenuated? So attenuated means the organism is made inactive. That is, it is live, okay, but the organism, when it is incorporated as a vaccine into the person, it will only cause the antibody production in the body but does not cause any disease. It will not end up in disease. Only the antibodies are produced in the body and they are stored in the human. Next we are going to see about pneumonia. So pneumonia is an infection. It's an infection of lungs, which is usually caused by a bacteria such as Streptococcus pneumoniae, and you have Haemophilus influenzae. So these are the exclusively two organisms which are said to cause pneumonia. So what happens here when an infected person coughs or sneezes? So it's moreover a contagious disease again. The microorganisms spread in air. Breathing those small droplets containing these bacteria may cause pneumonia. So the symptoms include cold, followed by high fever, chills, cough containing sputum, and generally discolored and sometimes red because of the presence of blood. Okay, so these are the symptoms. So it's more of a cold-like symptom, but here the person will just not have running nose, something like that. It is affected with the lungs. It's not just the it's the respiratory tract. So when the lungs get affected, when the disease is left untreated, the disease might get, so as the disease moves into a severe state is where sometimes you find the presence of blood in the sputum while coughing. Prevention. So how can you prevent this disease? Avoid smoking of tobacco and other pollutants will help in preventing the disease. And another thing, when a person is said to be infected, and it's better to be away from that person because it spreads through, it's contagious, it's spread through air. It's an airborne disease. Okay. Next disease that we are going to see under bacteria is cholera. Okay. So the causative agent of cholera is Vibrio cholerae. Okay. So Vibrio is a comma-shaped bacteria. Okay. Comma-shaped bacteria. In the small intestine, the bacteria produces an enterotoxin. Okay, again, the mode of entry for this cholera, this particular disease issue, it's again contaminated water, especially contaminated water. So what happens is once it is ingested and once it starts affecting the host, it produces a toxin called as enterotoxin, which stimulates the release of water from cells called as watery diarrhea. So it ends in watery diarrhea. So how can you prevent this disease? This can be prevented by following safe drinking and food habits or supplementary rehydration fluids. So since a person has diarrhea and continuous diarrhea, the person has to be hydrated, otherwise he will become very weak. Sodium in the saline helps in retain water in the body. So you must have heard about the simple term called as electrolyte. So you must be having it when you undergo diarrhea. Yeah, that's the same thing that you can find here. Okay. So next we are going to see the list of other bacterial diseases. So some of which includes diphtheria. Okay. Diphtheria is caused by the bacteria Corynebacterium diphtheriae. Okay. Next we have tetanus here. It is an infection of the neural system and that is caused by Clostridium tetani. Next we have plague. It is caused by the bacteria Yersinia pestis. Leprosy, a very common disease and that's associated with skin. It is caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium lepromatosis. So here if you see, it's again the genus of Mycobacterium here. Then we have anthrax. This disease is caused by Bacillus anthracis. Gonorrhea. Okay, this is caused by the bacterium Neisseria gonorrhoeae and this is a sexually transmitted disease. So the other diseases which haven't been mentioned here, which comes under bacteria, another sexually transmitted disease that I would like to add here is syphilis. This is caused by bacteria and it's a spirochete. Okay, it's a spirochete. So this is how it comes under the microscope and you can view it like this. So this is once again a sexually transmitted disease caused by a bacteria and the symptom or the visible signs on the body is a canker formation, you call it as. Okay, you call that as canker formation. Fine. So next we are moving to another sector where we're going to see about viral diseases. Okay, so the first disease that we are going to see under viral disease, a very common disease, right? And you even have vaccines been provided now. So the first disease that we are going to see today is influenza. called as flu. It is caused by the influenza virus, which is mycovirus. It is contagious. Mostly viral diseases are said to be contagious. It is contagious and can be transmitted through air droplets of infected person. So again, I'm going to talk about the example of coronavirus here. That is said to be a contagious disease, a viral disease, and the transmission is again through infected person, through the air droplets and all that. Even if you happen to touch the contagious materials, the person who is infected has used their kerchiefs, or it might be any materials that they went through, touching them, you can also infest the disease. Next, coming to the symptoms here: sore throat, fever, muscle pain, headache, and physical discomfort. Okay, these are the symptoms and signs of the virus disease influenza. So how can you prevent? You should stay away from the infected person. It can be prevented by using antiviral drugs and washing the contaminated surface with disinfectants and remaining away from the infected person. Okay. Next viral disease that we are going to see, again this is a common one and I think all of you know aware about it: chickenpox. And this is caused by Varicella zoster virus, which is simply abbreviated as VZ and V. Chickenpox is a highly contagious disease that causes skin lesions. So when these skin lesions start to rupture, these fluids are very contagious and they are easily transmitted from one person to another. And this disease, if you see, is found especially in children. Okay, the entry of the virus is through the upper respiratory tract and conjunctiva. Okay, conjunctiva is in association with your eyes. Next, we're talking about the symptoms here. They include fever, small irregular rose-colored skin lesions on the body, all over the body. Later, the lesions will dry and crust over. Sometimes you find the marks leaving, sometimes the marks don't easily go away. So how can you treat them is using varicella vaccine. Okay. Next is the dengue fever. Okay, so we're going to see about dengue. Dengue is a mosquito-borne viral infection caused by the dengue virus infected female mosquitoes. So malaria, if you see, it's a protozoan disease which is caused by Plasmodium. Dengue, if you see, it's caused by virus. Again, it's a vector-borne disease where it uses a female mosquito called as Aedes mosquito. Okay, you have two species which has come under Aedes. You can have a note of it. So this is, though being a viral disease, is once again a vector-borne disease. Okay, the virus is actually a single-stranded RNA of the family Flaviviridae belonging to the genus Flavivirus. The symptoms include it starts from a mild to high fever. It slowly increases with severe headache, pain behind the eyes, muscle, joint pain, and rash. And they also say the person who is affected with dengue, the first part or the first organ to be infected is the liver. Okay. Prevention. It can be prevented using environmental management such as proper disposal of solid waste, elimination of stagnant water, because that is a nice place for mosquitoes to grow in. So it is important to eliminate stagnant water, and by improving water storage practices. Okay. So next we are coming on to the favorite topic, the favorite disease, where many experiences. So now I have a doubt here. So here we were talking about viral diseases. We saw chickenpox, dengue, all that. So have you ever thought, why is that chickenpox doesn't happen to come again for a person, but a common cold continuously? Sometimes you find people having common cold every month, or it is very often that the person experiences this. Why is it? See, our immune system has something called memory cells. Okay, they have something called memory cells. So imagine the person has chickenpox. So when chickenpox is seen to be infected by any people, the antibodies are given out. I mean, they are produced to attack these antigens. So antigens are the foreign materials that enter our body, and the antibodies are produced against these antigens so that they are eliminated from our body. So the work of the memory cells, if you see, Once this antigen has been eliminated from the body, the antibodies will have a storage. It will store in the memory cells. It will have an account saying that this disease has already occurred and already it has antibodies for it in ready. So what happens if the person is again subjected to this bacteria or virus or whatever it might be? The memory cells will immediately recover. It will identify, it will recall that this is something that already this host has been subjected to, and immediately the antibodies are liberated and the disease gets subsided. It's eliminated again. But when you say common cold, there are several serotypes. Okay, there are several serotypes, and that is why every time you get this common cold, the body has to start from A to Z. The mechanism has to start from, it has to identify which serotype it is. After it identifies, it has to produce the required antibody. After it produces, it has to store. But in case of other diseases like chicken pox, or if you take any viral diseases that has a storage mechanism where it has a memory cells to recover and recall, there the process is very short. It directly enters into the Z process. Okay, so this is something that I would like to add on here. The common cold or the coryza caused mainly by rhinoviruses, the family rhinovirus. You have several serotypes under rhinovirus. They generally transmit via aerosols of respiratory droplets. Of course, it's contagious. It spreads from one person to another. These viruses infect the upper respiratory tract, but they do not affect your lungs. That is why they're kind of less severe. Okay, symptoms include nasal discharge, congestion, sore throat, hoarseness, cough, tiredness, which usually lasts up to 3 to 7 days. By then it gets subsided. Coronaviruses, which are also responsible for causing common cold, they are said to infect the epithelium of both respiratory and the digestive tract. That is why it is so severe. Once it starts affecting the respiratory and the digestive tract, the person will experience in shortness of breath. He cannot breathe. He will have breathing problems. That is why after it becomes into a shortness of breath, it becomes pneumonia. So slowly the severeness of the disease will slowly increase. That is why it is seen to affect children and elderly people where the immunity is at a very suppressed rate. Okay. So next we have the list of other viral diseases. They include smallpox. So smallpox is now, the scenario is predominantly been eradicated from India. It is an infectious disease caused by the variola virus. Next we have polio, a very common disease. You have vaccines for it. It is often called as polio and it is caused by polio virus. So it includes the paralysis of your limbs. Hepatitis, it is caused by hepatitis virus. SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, a very common disease in one part of our era. It is caused by coronavirus SARS-CoV. So now we have coronavirus, which is caused by COVID-19. Next we have viral pneumonia. This disease is commonly caused by the influenza virus, and you have serotypes like A and B, and you have the RSV, that is the respiratory syncytial virus, and we have para-influenza viruses also causing viral pneumonia. Next we have chikungunya. It is caused by alpha virus belonging to the family Tocoviridae. So this is a list of other viral diseases, and all these are viral diseases. They are said to caused by viruses, and virus, as I already mentioned, they require a host cell to survive in, and mostly the virus will have either RNA or DNA. They cannot have both. The genetic material can be either RNA or DNA. Okay, so with this we complete the part 3 of bacterial and viral diseases. Hope to meet you in the next part with interesting set of explanations and discussions to be happening. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.